So this is me, and this is my dog, Kenbi. And this is me getting bit by Kenbi, doing defensive handler with me as the decoy. Now you're probably wondering, why in the world would I let my own dog bite me as a decoy? Well, the answer, very simply, is about development. Don't worry, I'm going to explain in full detail. But first, run the intro. So to answer the $1 million question, why would I let my dog bite me? Well, like I stated, it's really about development. So simply put, the purpose of this exercise is to push my dog out of her comfort zone and to see exactly how well does she understand the exercise that she's being asked to do. To understand how clear is she and how fluent is she in regards to the exercise that she's being assigned to do. So first, before I get into it, I want to state that what you're looking at are professional dog trainers. Don't try this at home. Don't go and buy a random piece of equipment and start to agitate your dog, because it can be dangerous for you as well as for the dog. But to go into more detail, this really is an example of what is called the ZPD, the Zone of Proximal Development. And here's a little clip of Miles talking about it himself.
Your dog is not supposed to understand everything that you ask him or her to do. We talked about that zone of proximal development, okay? We talked about that core mass being where your dog can do something on its own, where it fully understands something. And we talked about that outer shell being the zone where your dog does not understand something and is somewhat in complete failure, okay? In the middle of those two things is that zone. That zone is where you must push, teach, and train.
So to kind of put that in the context of dog training, obviously when people first get a dog, they train the dog all the basic things, engagement, recall, sit, stay down, all that good stuff, right? So my personal dog, Kenbi, when she was a puppy, I did the same thing. But once I felt she understood certain things, like, for example, the sit command, then I would challenge her, right? I would make her sit on top of tables. I would make her sit on top of boxes. I would make her sit on top of a bucket. The bucket was much harder for her, right? Because it's kind of a smaller surface. It feels like it's hollow, so it doesn't feel as sturdy. And so, at first it was very hard for her to try to trust, the bucket, but she would try, So I would, basically lure her on top of it, and then I would kind of hold the bucket down to kind of, make her feel that it was more stable. And I would just, keep doing it until she could do it. She could, she learned how to sit on the bucket. And I also use that example in a figurative way, basically to mean that, you have to challenge your dog. Like, once you feel your dog knows something, challenge it, proof it. See how well does your dog actually understand that thing that you taught it. So what you're going to see in these videos is essentially that. And that is also very much related to ZPD and, the Zone of Proximal Development that Miles was mentioning in the earlier clip. But essentially the idea is that every dog has a comfort zone. They learn something, they learn how to do it well, they're comfortable doing it. But outside of that zone, they get pushed into an area where they're not comfortable, and because they're not comfortable, they don't really know what they're doing, or maybe they're not clear, they tend to fail at doing it. But they can still function in that zone if they receive the right type of assistance or guidance, direction, so on and so forth. So what you're going to see in these videos is essentially an example of that. I'm testing my dog to see how fluent is she in understanding the defensive handler exercise. So first I would say, don't try this at home. If you're not a professional dog handler, dog trainer, don't just go out and buy some random equipment and start trying to agitate your own dog or anything like that. Because not only could you get hurt, but you could unintentionally harm your dog as well. So, don't try this at home. Also, for the record, my dog is not a personal protection dog. I train her specifically to be a French ring protection sport dog. So if you know anything about, protection sports versus protection training, you know that they're completely different. They are related. There are some principles that overlap. There are some training methods that overlap, but they are two completely different types of training because they have different purposes. So I wasn't like confused about whether or not she was going to bite me. I knew she was going to bite me, but I wanted to see how clear she was on the exercise. Does she still understand that she has to stick with the handler, right? Regardless of who the handler is. And does she know that she has to go after the decoy, regardless of who the decoy is? And so in this clip, you're going to see that, at first she's a little unclear, but she figured it out, right? She figured it out pretty quick. So to me, that's a good indication that she truly understands the concept of the exercise. So here you're seeing Miles actually gets down on the ground and crawls, right? So this is really a really good test for her because, she's never seen that picture before. That's literally the first time I've never done that with her. So that's the first time she's seen that. But that's a really, really good way of testing her, right? Again, it's defensive handler, regardless of what the handler is doing, right? French ring is designed in a specific way that, the decoy approaches, he'll kind of make small talk, shake your hand, and then he'll walk 5 steps behind you and he'll turn around and come in from the back. But the dog should have a good enough understanding of the exercise, like to understand the concept of it, to the point where regardless of if the handler is standing still or sitting in a chair or laying on the ground, or in this case, crawling, the dog has to know I have to stay with my handler, I have to keep up, and I have to remain vigilant. And I'm going to play some of the audio just so you can kind of hear her. She's she's kind of verbal in the bite, but like you can tell, like she's biting me. She's not holding back. She's not confused about whether or not she should bite. Like she's biting with full force.
Good girl. Do a fake hand. Do a fake hand. Give her a fake hand, son.
She's coming pretty hard, and it's not aggression per se, it's just intensity. And this is how she normally is on the bite. So again, that's a good indicator to me that she understands, the exercise. It's not like she says, well, you're my handler, so I'm not going to bite you as hard. Like, no, like I would actually even say that she's biting me harder because the role reversal kind of ups the ante, right? And so really the whole point of this is just to emphasize the idea that, as trainers, we want to develop our dog as much as possible. Like, some dogs have a lot of potential. Some dogs have less potential. But whatever that potential is, you want to find it, So this clip is pretty cool. Like it shows Miles with his personal dog, Lady. Now Lady is not being trained, actively for like competition or anything like that. Miles trained her, years ago. And, now she's just kind of relaxing. But she still knows, she still has a very, very solid foundation. So Linda came out to train with us one day, and this is like our first time meeting her. This is her first time seeing Lady. This is Lady's first time seeing, Linda, so on and so forth. But basically Miles told Linda to, give Lady the defense command for defensive handler. And she did it.
Let's just play, right? Let's just play. Let's experiment. Let's see the clarity in or lack of in what we ask of her. Her name is Lady. Okay. know, she's obviously driven, even if she's old, like 10 or 11. But she's gonna work for a bite. Just call her name, and then the opposite of offense.
You want me to call her to me and say that word?
Yeah.
Okay, so I only know the German commands. So
Yeah, that's it.
Just say okay. Lady, here. Defense. Good girl.
Walk away. Walk back.
Defense. Oh, is this bye-bye?
Yeah.
Okay. Good girl. Hi. Nice hat.
Like, and I literally don't train her anymore.
So remember, I don't know the rules, but that was very cool.
Like, just like that, she's doing defensive handler with someone she literally met that in that moment, you know. So that shows that she has fluency. You know, she has fluency in the exercise. You know, she understands the concept of it. So regardless of who the handler is, just like she did it with Linda, like, I could do it too. You know, like I could walk up to Lady and give her the command and she would defend me, you know, because she understands the concept of the exercise. So that's a really good example of kind of how you want to build a dog, to the point where regardless of the context, the dog should have some fluency and be able to kind of perform, even with some variables, you know, thrown in that the dog is not used to. So that's the idea of testing your dog. You know, that's why doing exercises like this is a good way to kind of give your dog a fluency test, as it were, to see, does your dog truly understand what it's being asked to do? And so that's really the point. So thanks for watching Behind the Stick. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like dog training content. Yeah, stay tuned. Behind the Stick. Peace.